Hello, my name is Sophie. Welcome to my book channel. Today we're going to talk about the 8 books that I read in April. This is just 5, but there are 3 on my Kindle. And also my May TBR. I love doing these videos. They've become one of my favorite videos to film every month, and I don't want to waste any time. So let's get into the statistics from my reading this past month. Now, April was a pretty consistent reading month for me, I would say. I wouldn't say these books were like standout favorites, at least most of them. And especially towards the end of the month, I was kind of reading more inconsistently, but I did get 8 books read during the month of April, which is great. And I read a total of 3,942 pages. The average time to finish each book was about 3 days, and my top moods were emotional, dark, tense, and mysterious, which is about what it usually is. 13% of my books were under 300 pages. I think that's just one book. 25%, so a quarter, were over 500, and then the other 5 books, 63%, were between 300 and 499 pages. They were all fiction, as per usual, and I have quite a few genres this month because I feel like I had a couple of books that are outside of my normal reading zone. So majority romance, followed by contemporary and fantasy, but I also have classics, LGBTQ, young adult, mystery, literary, and horror on here. Yeah, quite a few genres because a couple of books like cover multiple genres. 38% of the books that I read this month were digital, that's 3 books, and then the other 5, which is 63%, were printed books. And then my average star rating was a 3.75. I didn't have a 5-star this month, but I also didn't have lower than a 3-star. So that's why I say that this month was kind of just like a mid reading month, like nothing incredibly amazing, but nothing like disastrously terrible either. So let's just get into it, because the first book that I read this month was Flock, and this kind of goes down a whole other rabbit hole that I haven't talked very much about on this channel yet, so we're gonna do it right here. Basically, I put One Last Rainy Day on my TBR for April, and I realized that was a spin-off book of the main series Flock, which I had to read first. So I put that one aside and I picked up Flock, and this book I read, I think, in under a day, or maybe it was like just over a day. I inhaled this book. It was so good. I gave it 4 stars. This book follows our main girl, Cecilia, whose dad is very rich, and she has lived with her mom her entire life, but she decides that she wants to do better for her mom and get them out of their like poor living situation. So she will go and work for her dad for a year, and then after that her dad will pay for her college, and so she will get her inheritance, she will go get a degree, her life will be like considerably better. But when she goes to this new town where her dad lives to go work, she meets this guy named Sean, who is her supervisor at work. He has a raven tattoo. He is like really mysterious, and she's like wondering what's going on with him. She eventually goes to like this party with him, and she meets a lot of other characters, one of which is named Dominic. He is also very mysterious, and we're like wondering like, okay, so these are real people, but like what is going on? What are they hiding from us? What kind of secrets will they not tell? Because they're always asking her, can you keep a secret? And she's like, what secret, babes? And so this book was really interesting because you are out of the know, just like Cecilia, for the majority of the book, but you slowly get to find out what the Ravenhood is, what this group of brothers and sisters are, how Cecilia gets involved with them. There's also a love triangle in this book, and I don't know if it's a spoiler to say how it ends, so I won't, but definitely a really interesting twist with this one. And I thought it was so much fun. Then I moved into book 2, which is called Exodus, and this book absolutely ruined me. It did. I said in one of my recent vlogs that if Flock was like this, Exodus was like this as far as my emotions, but they both evened out to be 4-star ratings. So I gave the second book 4 stars as well. In this book, we meet a new character who at the beginning I really didn't like. And honestly, after a month of thinking and debating on it, I'm not even sure if I like him still. But we meet this new guy, and things definitely change. And then halfway through the book, we suffer a terrible plot twist, and thinking about that plot twist absolutely ruins my day. In fact, once I read that plot twist, I literally was in the shower sobbing for a good like 20 minutes about this plot twist. Yeah, it was that bad. I was like, this is a random contemporary romance that I picked up on a whim. Why am I sobbing so much over fictional characters that are not even in like a dramatic fantasy book? This is just in a regular like contemporary, you know? Like it wasn't even that deep, I feel, and yet like the emotions it tugged out of me were like insane. So the remainder of the book, I was like thrown through the ringer, you know? I was going through it. And again, that's why I say that it was like very up and down with my emotions. And so book 2 was a 4-star. Now, before I finished that series, I actually put a pause on it because after book 2, I needed like an emotional break. So then I read Final Offer, which is the last book in the Dreamland Billionaire series, and I actually vlogged this book in my finishing series vlog from a couple weeks ago. So this book follows Cal and Alana, who Cal is the last brother of the 3 brothers in this series, and he is struggling more than the other 2. He is also needing to get his inheritance from his grandfather, like all of them, but he is dealing with serious alcohol issues. He is definitely currently an addict, and he is going back to the house to sell his childhood home because that's his deal, or that's his part of the will in order to get his inheritance money. But when he goes back, he realizes that his childhood friend and lover, Alana, is still living there, and he also realizes that Alana has a kid. And so obviously he's like, well, I'd like to kick you out and make you move somewhere else. But then there's a lot of debate about Cal wants to sell the house because of the inheritance, but Alana wants to keep the house because it's where she's always lived and there's a lot of memories there. And I wouldn't even say it's like childhood friends to lovers to enemies to friends to lovers, if that makes sense, because we're rebuilding this bond between Cal and Alana that was lost over the however many years it's been since they've seen each other last. They left on bad terms. Cal is making up for his mistakes, but also realizing that he can never truly apologize and be sorry unless he fixes the root problem, which is his alcohol addiction. And also Alana has her own issues as well. Like, for example, she puts so much into her daughter that she doesn't take any time for herself. Anyway, this was a really chunky book, and I have a firm belief that Lauren Asher just loves to yap. She's a yapper, okay? Because she can write these contemporary romances that are so long. This is like almost 600 pages. However, even though I did think that the book was a little too long, I still thought that almost, not everything, but almost every page was worth its weight in gold, and I thought that it was a really, really sweet romance. I felt the chemistry, I felt the love, I felt the growth and development, and I thought it was a really great way to end out this trilogy, and I give it 4 stars. I liked it so much that I actually bought, it's up here, but I bought the first book in the Lakefront Billionaire series, which is Lauren Asher's new series that she's currently in the middle of writing. I think the first 2 out of 3 books are out, and I'm really excited about getting into that one as well. So if there's anyone that can make me read almost 600 pages of contemporary romance, it would be Lauren Asher. She has become one of my new favorite contemporary authors, and that makes me happy. After I finished that book, I went into The Finish Line by Kate Stewart. This finishes the trilogy in the Ravenhood series, and also I vlogged this one as well in the same finishing series vlog that Final Offer was in. This one unfortunately disappointed me. I talked about it a lot in that vlog, but this one follows characters who, number one, I'm mad at, okay? I was so mad at the end of book 2 that I was like not happy with either of the characters going to book 3. It was very repetitive, I felt. It was a lot of back and forth between the romance that was happening in this book that I felt was very much what we saw in book 2. It was quite long, like too long in my opinion. Unlike Final Offer, where the length was almost justified, this one I wanted to be cut in half. And also there were a lot of flashback scenes in this book that I thought would have been appreciated before, like earlier in the series. Like in the vlog I said, I want all the flashback scenes to be put in book 2, and then I want the big plot twist in book 2 to be at the end of that book, and then the second half of book 2 can be added to the beginning of book 3, and that would be book 3, if that makes sense. Like I think that there just needs to be a little bit of rearranging in how she organized the story, because at this point, the flashbacks are interesting, but it's too late for them, if that makes sense. Like I needed them a while ago. So because of that belief, I really didn't enjoy this book as much as I wanted to, and it put a damper on the Flux series as a whole for me. I really enjoyed book 1 and 2, but book 3 I gave 3 stars, and that finished the series for me. Now I still intend to read One Last Rainy Day, which is, like I said, the spin-off book. However, I figured that because I really didn't like book 3 and I was still reeling from what happened in book 2, I was really still too emotional to pick up that one. So it is going to be something I probably want to pick up in the future, but it's not going to be like this month or anytime soon. I definitely put a pause on that one. If I want to get my heart broken, I'll read it, okay? Anyway, after that I read the best book all month. I'm so excited about this, and I vlogged this one because it was on my April TBR. And that vlog will be coming out to you guys next week, I believe, so you will see my excited thoughts on this book. But that is The Jazzed Heir by Sarah Hashim. This book was so much fun. I was really in the mood for a fantasy romance when I picked this one up, which is why I enjoyed it so much. I think it was like perfect book, perfect timing. But this is a fantasy that is based on Egyptian mythology. We follow our main character. I think her name is Sylvia. It is Sylvia. Look at that. It's almost like I read this like a mere 2 weeks ago. Anyway, but she is a Jazadi, which means that she has magical powers, but her kingdom of Jazid was burned down years ago. I think it was like 5 or 10 years ago. And so she is now in a different kingdom, and she has to hide her powers because the Jazadi are being hunted down. Now, there is a prince from a different kingdom, and all these words, they're just harder words to pronounce. I think it's Nizal is how you pronounce the kingdom that Aaron is from. He is the prince, and Nizal was the one that burned down Jazid. So there's obviously enemy and tension there, and Aaron is looking for a champion to compete in these trials, because of course it's a fantasy book, it's gonna have trials. But he runs into Sylvia, who is just trying to survive basically, and I think it's Omar is where she is at. Omol. Okay, so it's a very strong enemies to lovers, like really strong. I talked about in the vlog, like this man stabs her multiple times with a knife. She slashes him back. Like it's not just like knife to the throat tension scenes, it's like they are brutal and willing to actually go through with their threats in this book. But I also felt like the romantic tension was also there throughout a good majority of it. I felt that it was a really good slow burn throughout the majority of this book, and the first like 67% was so amazing. I was honestly verging on giving this 4 stars. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars, so that's because number one, I think the switch from enemies to lovers was a little bit quick at the very end of this book, and I also felt like the trials were very rushed through and the ending was a little unsatisfying. Now, I'm not a huge trials person in books. I don't love them. I think it's a very overused trope, and so reading them, I don't hate them by any means. I think they can be very interesting, but I'm not like desperate for very long drawn out trials. So the fact that they were short didn't really bother me, but it may bother someone who's really looking forward to intricate, long drawn out trials, if that makes sense. The ending was a little rushed, a little disappointing to me, but this is a duology, and by the way, duology over trilogy any day. I love a duology. This book 2 comes out this summer, I believe, and I'm so excited to find out how it ends. I am here for the tension, I'm here for the drama, I'm here for book 2. I'm so excited about it, so this was a great read. Highly recommend it. And again, 4.5 stars. Continuing my theme of wanting to finish my April TBR, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, I think, about how I finished it. But the next book I read was A Picture of Dorian Gray, and this is the book that covers like multiple genres. This is a classic, and I put it on my TBR last month because it was under 300 pages, and that was like one of the prompts in my list. Anyway, but it's a very short read. I think it was written in like the 18-somethings. And it's a story of obviously Dorian Gray, who is this very popular, renowned, absolutely beautiful young man. Like everyone thinks he is gorgeous, just awesome to look at. And we follow him and this guy named Basil, who is a painter and who is painting a portrait of him because they are friends and Dorian sits for his portrait. And then Lord Henry meets him. Lord Henry is another friend of Basil, and through their meeting, Henry and Dorian become good friends. And then the story continues into talking about a bunch of very deep topics, like through, you know, high society in England and people going and having tea and watching theater shows and stuff. Oscar Wilde brings up conversations about like art and how art mimics life and vice versa. He talks a lot about like death and mortality and morality and like what it means to be a good person, stuff like that. There is trigger warnings of things like suicide and stuff in this book, so it is a little darker than you might think. And that's where like the horror element comes in, because I think the ending of this book was just like mind-boggling. There were definitely some parts in this book that I didn't enjoy. I feel like Oscar Wilde has a really great writing style when he's writing dialogue. It's very funny, it's very witty, I enjoy it, but sometimes he will have full-on chapters of just paragraphs and like no talking. It's just like inner monologue of a character. One of the chapters in the audiobook was like 45 minutes long. He will go on for just long swaths of time talking about a very abstract topic, and I'm like, I get that you have something important to say, but you say it better through dialogue than you do through long boring paragraphs. So some parts of this book I didn't enjoy for that reason. However, like I said, the ending blew my mind and it was so good. I really liked that very final plot twist. And also, I think that the characters in this book were purposefully unlikable in some cases, and also I liked seeing, like, for example, Dorian's descent from an angelic good person to is he evil because of these things that he's doing kind of thing. I thought that there was really good character development, even if it was in like a negative way, and so I thought it was a very intriguing, thought-provoking read. The audiobook definitely helped me through it, that's for sure, but I gave it 3.5 stars. It was going to be 3, but the ending pushed it to a 3.5. Oh, I also want to bring up that this book is technically LGBTQ as well, because people talk about Oscar Wilde was basically as outwardly gay as he could be in the 1800s, and there are definitely some underlying messages of homoeroticism and like gay relationships in this book, so I thought that that was very interestingly touched on as well. Obviously, it's very minor because this is a classic written like hundreds of years ago, or at least 100 years ago, but it does have that representation if you're looking for that, and Basil was my favorite character, so loved him, love that. And yeah, 3.5 stars. Pretty good. Surprised me, but pretty good. Next, I read probably one of my most anticipated reads of the year, and that is Fearless. I made an entire vlog about this book, I think a week maybe a week or two ago, and I didn't finish my thoughts in that vlog, so I'm going to talk about it now. Now, this is the third book in the Powerless series by Lauren Roberts. It is the finale of the trilogy, and everyone's been waiting for this one for at least a year, I think, since Reckless came out. Just to make things quick, I gave this 3.5 stars. It was not my favorite thing ever, and it was probably my least favorite of the 3 main books, although the novella Powerful is probably below it at 3 stars. I don't really want to talk about the plot of this book because that would spoil books 1 and 2, but talking about book 1 and very succinctly, this follows a main girl, Peyton, who is an ordinary, which means she doesn't have powers. Now, in this world, there are ordinaries and there are elites. Elites have powers, ordinaries don't. If you've read Red Queen, it's very similar to that as far as plot. And so you follow Peyton, who is an ordinary. She meets Kai, who is the second prince. He is the enforcer, which means he goes around killing ordinaries, but he decides he wants to take her to be his champion, or not even his champion, because he's also in the games, but he wants to take her to join him in this trials game situation that's happening in book 1. And then there's also his older brother, Kit, who is the prince and the king to be, and he is also involved in a love triangle in book 1. But I would say that in the most general way possible, I think Lauren Roberts heard the criticism from book 2 and used a lot of elements from book 1, which is the wide majority's favorite, back in this book. Shook a lot of plot points in book 1 and repeated them. And I didn't like that. I thought it was lazy. I thought it was already done before. And I, for the majority of this book, thought it was quite repetitive, especially with Kai's dialogue, but also just the plot points. I knew that everyone talks about the last 150 pages being absolutely crazy and mind-boggling. And a couple of plot twists surprised me. A couple of them didn't, because I, at that point, really didn't care much. Like I said in the vlog, the stakes are too low for me. Like, it's a YA romantasy book. I know that my 2 favorite characters, who are the love interests, are going to live. And so no matter who else doesn't make it, I wasn't going to be mad about it because I didn't really care. The stakes were too low. It was going to be fine, you know? So because I wasn't that invested in it, I unfortunately was just kind of trudging through the last little bit. Again, some plot twists were surprising, some I kind of expected. Overall, it was just not as good as books 1 or 2 in my opinion, and it was a little too long. So 3.5 stars. I would still recommend the series as a whole, especially to YA readers, because this is more targeted towards that demographic. I still recommend the series as a whole, but this was my least favorite, excluding the novella. So 3.5 stars. And then the last book that I read this month that I just finished a couple days ago was Gothicana by Runix. This copy is really cool because it has like purple sprayed edges. I don't know, do y'all like the solid color or do you hate it? I like it. I think it's satisfying, but I know some people really don't like it, so personal preference, I suppose. But yeah, this one, what did I even rate this? I was going back and forth on a rating for a hot second. Okay. 3.5 stars again. That's the third 3.5 back to back. But honestly, thinking about it later, I have better feelings about this book than I do Fearless. Maybe it was because of my expectations. I thought Fearless was going to be great, and it was a little disappointing. This one I've heard very mixed reviews from, and so getting a 3.5 was like not the best ever, but it wasn't a bad rating, you know? This follows our main girl whose name is Corvina. And she has always been the weird girl in her town. You know, everyone's always kind of made fun of her, looked down on her and her mother for being just like weird and kooky. One day she gets a letter to go to the school called the University of Varenmore, and she is intrigued, but she decides to go. And there she meets this teacher named Vad. So yes, before I even get any further, this is a teacher-student romance, but because they're in college, she's actually 21, turning 22. He's only 5 years older than her. Like, everyone makes it such a big deal. I feel like it's not that bad. Like, a 5-year difference. They're in their 20s. Yes, it's teacher student, but like it's not even that crazy, you know? Like, I've read more taboo books than this, so it really didn't throw me off, the age gap and everything. This book is kind of half romance though and half mystery, because this is like a dark gothic castle university in the middle of the woods. There's like a scary lake, and there's like ruins of dead people in the north, and there's all these dark mysteries, and she hears voices and sees things, and it's a question of like what's real and what isn't, and who's going to solve the mystery, and students are going missing and what's happening to them, things like that. So there is more to this than just romance, which I really liked. I do think towards the middle it dragged a little bit, mostly because this book is heavy on the tell not show. I really appreciate show not tell, and this was very big on the author would just like tell you that the chemistry was there between the love interests, or the author would tell you that X was such a great friend to Corvina. And I was like, well, I'm not seeing them have actual conversations to prove that. I'm just hearing you tell me that they've had conversations in the past, if that makes sense. So I didn't love the writing style, but going towards the end of the book, I really liked the last 100 pages. The plot really started to ramp up, the mystery started to be unveiled, and some things were left unfinished, which I think is an interesting choice. Very spooky, very scary. And also it deals with mental health, specifically schizophrenia and not knowing if what's in your mind is real or not. That twist I thought was very interesting and not anything I've read before. So I was going back and forth between a 4 and a 3.5, 3. Some really good prose, I think, but also some heavy negatives with the writing style. As a whole, I gave it 3.5 stars. I would recommend this, I think. It's not a bad book by any means. Has its flaws for sure, but overall it was a good time. And 3.5 is not even a bad rating because, again, I've given 2 other books this month 3.5, but in my mind, 3 is a decent book and everything above that is good, and then a 2 and a 1 star is where I'm not gonna recommend things anymore. So as long as it's above a 3 star, I think we're in the clear, and I recommend this if it sounds interesting. Try your luck. I mean, people have controversies about it, but I thought it was not a bad time, Good book. All right, with that being said, that's all the books that I read in the month of April, but we still have my TBR to talk about and my May TBR to choose with my TBR prompts. Now, to talk about my April TBR, I had 4 books on my list, I believe. Oh no, there are 5 books on my TBR. My bad. It was Picture Dorian Gray, One Rainy Day Which Turned into Flock, Book 1, Jazz at Air, Final Offer, and Beartown, I believe, was the entire TBR. And out of the 5, I read 4 books. Now, technically, I'm in the middle of Beartown. I'm halfway through, but I'm filming this on May 1st, and I didn't finish it yet, so it hasn't made it yet, but I'm probably going to finish it in May. That being said, I have quite a few books on my immediate to-read list that I really want to put on my TBR for May, so I'm going to pick a couple prompts, but if we don't get those books with the prompts, I'm probably just going to pick what I want to pick, because in my defense, I have books that my friends have given me to read, and I also have books coming in the mail that I need to read. So anyway, let's do a little swish of my TBR prompts and pick at least a couple to read during the month of May. This first prompt says, a book with a 4-word title. Okay, this one is difficult because my list of priority reads this month, I don't think any of them are 4-star titles. My friend gave me the Atlas 6. This is on our list of books to swap with my 3-friend book swap that we're doing, but this is unfortunately 3 words, the Atlas 6. My sister gave me Once Upon a Broken Heart that she wants me to read ASAP, but this is 5 words, not 4. I have Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home. I really want to read this book. I've read the first 2 and I liked them, but I decided that I wanted to order the first 2 and annotate them because I read them digitally first, and I think they deserve a reread and also just more time sat with them because everyone loves Joseph Hastings' writing. So I ordered book 1 and 2. They're coming in the mail, and until they come, I'm not going to be reading book 3. This isn't even 4. I mean, The Long Way Home is 4, but I want to read those first, and the first book is just Magnolia Park, so that's just 2. So I'm a little stuck. I don't think any other book on my TBR shelf is 4 letters. I think it's all 3 or 5 letters. Let me look on Goodreads and see what's on my want to read list. Okay, so we have On Wings of Blood, which is the first book in a fantasy series that was recommended to me by a booktuber. I know nothing about this, but I've heard that it's really, really good, so that's on the list. There's also Daughter of No World, which is the first book in Carissa Broadbent's other series. I've heard that this main character is a lot like Aelin from Throne of Glass, and we all know Aelin is my favorite protagonist, probably ever, so that's a very high contender. I also just got, oh, that's 5 words, dang it. I just got the audiobook for The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig, which comes out this month, and that's 5. I don't know if I really want to read Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I've heard kind of mixed things about it. Say You'll Remember Me is Abby Jimenez's newest book, so maybe I'm choosing between Say You'll Remember Me and Daughter of No Worlds. This is so hard. Oh my god. I think I'm going to choose Daughter of No Worlds. I know I need to read Abby's book, but this one, I'm really in the mood for fantasy, I feel right now, so I'm gonna put this one on my TBR. Daughter of No Worlds is number 1. Let's pick another one. That was really stressful, but let's do another. All right, this one is an author you've never read before, which is perfect because a couple of books that my friends gave me, I've never read before. So we have either Stephanie Garber's book or the Atlas 6. Both of these are authors I've never read before, and I'm going to choose Once Upon a Broken Heart because my sister has been begging me to read this, and I need to. to. She's read my book, or she's reading my book that I gave her, so I need to do my due diligence and follow through with my promises and read this one. So Once Upon a Broken Heart, I've heard amazing things about Stephanie Garber's writing. I hear it's very easy to read, very magical, very like pretty princess kind of vibes, and this one is supposed to be so good. So yeah, I'm excited about it, and this is book 2. Book 3, the prompt says, let me open it. A book, oh my gosh, this is perfect. It says a book with a number in the title. God is looking down on me today. He is, because the Atlas 6 has 6 in the title. It's perfect. It's perfect. So this is my other book I'm going to be reading. I'm excited about this one. That's a lie. I'm scared. I'm excited, but I'm also scared. Olivia Blake, I hear, has very pretentious writing, which is cool. And I'm excited to have this one because it's my friend's copy and I'm going to annotate it for her. And I think that reading it physically and being able to like write in it will make me like understand her more complex writing style a little more than like an audiobook or maybe even a Kindle style. So this might be like a little bit of a journey to read, but I'm up for the challenge, that's for sure. And I know that this entire series is very either well loved or well hated. So yeah, we'll see with this one, but that's also on the list. Let's do book 4. All right, this one is a book with a red cover. Very interesting prompt. I don't think that there is a book on my TBR right now that is completely red or majority red. Unfortunately, I could have used this prompt for Daughter of More Worlds, which I just picked a second ago. That one is completely red, I feel. Let me go back to my Goodreads list. We can pull out on Wings of Blood. Again, that one is very red. There is also Swordcatcher, which is Cassandra Clare's new book. Everyone has been raving about this one online, and yet the ratings are kind of mid. But I hear it's a really good fantasy book, so maybe I add that one to the list. Although that would make a lot of fantasies, because that's like, what, the 4th fantasy book that I'm reading this month? When does Rewind It Back come out? That comes out, Rewind It Back comes out on the 20th. Y'all, this is the last book in the Windy City series, and it comes out this May. How can I not put this on the list? Oh, but wait, I haven't even read Play Along yet. Dang it. I haven't even read book 4 yet. I need to read book 4 before I read this one. So maybe I can't put it on the list yet. All right, let me go back to the top. I think I'm going to pick between the 2 fantasies. I'm going to pick Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. I really, really want to read this one. I also want to read Rewind It Back, but I need to read book 4 first, and that one's purple. So that can't be done for this prompt, but in the back of my mind, it's also on the list, I think. So that's 4 books. Let's pick the last one for the day. I'm gonna try to get Magnolia Parks on here if I can make the prompt fit, and if it doesn't, I may just put it on there myself because you know me, it's my channel, I make the rules. This one, oh, hallelujah, we're good. It says, a book you think will make you feel giddy. Now, does Magnolia Parks make me want to throw the book across the wall and pull my hair out? Yes, but also, from what I remember about reading book 1, like a year and a couple months ago, there are some lines in that book that make you want to kick your feet and like grin so hard. So Magnolia Parks is gonna be the last book on this list, and I'm getting it in the mail hopefully in the next week or so, and I'm so excited. Most of the books I don't have with me, but my TBR for May is going to be Daughter of No Worlds, Once Upon a Broken Heart, The Atlas 6, Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare, and then finally Magnolia Parks book 1, so I can do my reread. I'm very excited about these choices. I hope you are too. During the month of May, you will see a bunch of vlogs from me. You will see all these books in either a vlog or my future wrap-up, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. I love you guys so much. Let me know what you read in April in the comments down below, and I will see you next Thursday for a new video.